You know that feeling when someone's telling you they're fine, but every fiber of your being screams that something's wrong? Most people miss it, but there's one type of person who catches it every single time. Not just the lie, but the exact psychological mechanism behind it. They read micro-expressions, anticipate outcomes, ask questions that cut to the heart of who you really are. And here's the thing. If someone's trying to fake being this type of person, they'll eventually slip. Because these 8 traits aren't behaviors. They're neurological tells that reveal whether someone is authentically INFJ or just playing the part. These individuals belong to the rarest personality type on Earth, and every single trait that makes them extraordinary is hardwired into their brain structure. You can't learn this from a psychology course or self-help book. You can't imitate what's built into your nervous system. Before we start, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss any of our weekly deep dives into the world of personality types. And if you're looking for a deeper understanding of yourself and your INFJ personality, browse our favorite INFJ products in the description, and click the link in the comments to take our favorite free personality test. Trait 1. They read what your mouth never says. Here's something most people don't understand about communication. You think you're talking with your words, but that's actually only 7% of what you're really saying. The other 93% happens in ways that barely register in your conscious awareness. An INFJ isn't just picking up on this 93%. They're doing something far more sophisticated. They're cross-referencing it, analyzing it, and building a complete psychological profile of what's actually happening underneath the surface. This ability isn't like learning a language. It doesn't take training or practice in the traditional sense. INFJs have been developing this since childhood. While other kids were playing video games or watching cartoons, INFJs were observing household dynamics, noticing when their parents' arguments seemed surface level versus when real resentment was building. Understanding which family members were struggling emotionally, even when everyone was smiling. What makes this genuinely impossible to replicate is that it requires authentic observation operating in real time. Your brain can't fake genuine data collection. When a real INFJ encounters you, they're not running through a checklist or following a script. They're observing dozens of simultaneous variables: your breathing pattern, the pupils in your eyes, the energy in your voice, the timing of your responses, the words you chose versus the words you didn't choose, your posture, your fidgeting patterns, hundreds of other micro details that combine into a complete picture of your inner reality. Someone attempting to fake this ability would have to memorize patterns and make educated guesses. They might get lucky once or twice, but eventually they make a wildly incorrect assumption that exposes them immediately. A real INFJ's observations are based on actual data points they're receiving in real time. They're not predicting, they're reading. And there's a massive neurological difference between those two things. The fake will eventually reveal themselves by making assumptions about your emotional state that are completely off base. They'll confidently declare you're anxious when you're actually excited, or insist you're hiding something when you're genuinely content. A real INFJ might not always interpret correctly, but their observations of what's happening in your body and voice are consistently accurate because they're based on genuine perception. Trait 2. Their obsession with your potential borders on unsettling. Most people care about you being happy. An INFJ cares about you becoming something. There's a subtle but critical difference between these two approaches. It's the difference between surface-level kindness and genuine transformation-focused investment. When an INFJ looks at you, they're not just seeing who you are right now. They're simultaneously seeing who you could become if you actually gave yourself permission. They're seeing your gifts before you've even discovered them yourself. They're thinking 3 steps ahead about how your talents could evolve and what kind of impact you could have on the world. This goes beyond simple encouragement. They'll notice abilities you've dismissed as unimportant and connect them to possibilities you never considered. Here's what makes this utterly impossible to fake. It requires the person to have absolutely no ego investment in your success or failure. A real INFJ genuinely doesn't care whether you take their advice or ignore it completely. They care in the sense that it bothers them if you're wasting your potential, but they don't need you to succeed to feel good about themselves. They don't get a personal boost from being right, or from you crediting them for your growth. Someone faking this trait would eventually reveal that they're actually looking for validation or recognition. They might help you make positive changes, but then they'd want credit for it. They'd bring it up later. They'd say things like, "Remember when I told you to do that thing? You should probably mention I helped you." A real INFJ will help you transform your entire life. And if you never mention it or credit them, they won't care. They're satisfied knowing internally that you're becoming who you were meant to be. This comes from a neurological difference in how INFJs are wired. Their reward system is activated by seeing other people grow, not by receiving recognition for facilitating that growth. You can't manufacture that kind of genuine satisfaction with other people's success unless it's actually built into your brain structure. The obsession extends to seeing potential in situations others would abandon. They'll invest emotional energy in relationships and projects that seem hopeless to everyone else because they can see the transformation that's possible. This isn't naive optimism. It's pattern recognition applied to human development. Trait 3. Small talk causes them physical discomfort. You know that feeling when you're talking to someone and they keep steering the conversation back to surface level topics? Weather, traffic, what you had for lunch, who's dating who, which celebrity wore the craziest outfit. For most people, this is totally fine. For an INFJ, this is basically torture. INFJs experience a phenomenon where shallow conversation actually causes them physical discomfort. It's not that they're being snobby or intellectual. It's that their brain literally cannot find surface-level conversation stimulating or interesting. They're walking around with this incredibly active inner world, full of questions about philosophy, consciousness, human relationships, meaning, purpose, fear, transformation, and the deeper patterns in life. So when they're stuck in a conversation about network television ratings, their mind is essentially screaming for escape. What's wildly impossible to fake here is the inability to enjoy something. You can't decide to be bored by small talk if you're not actually bored by small talk. Someone could try to engage only in deep conversations to seem like an INFJ, but they'd eventually slip. They'd get tired of always going deep. They'd enjoy a good gossip session about celebrity drama. They'd be happy to watch a reality show and not analyze the psychological dynamics of every single interaction. A real INFJ's need for depth isn't something they're choosing. It's something happening to them. They're neurologically wired to find meaning and pattern in all human interaction. So when they ask you about your greatest fear, or your definition of success, or what you think happens after we die, they're not doing it because they read somewhere that deep people ask deep questions. They're doing it because these are the conversations that actually make them feel alive. And here's the thing that really shows the authenticity. They actually listen to your answers. They don't ask deep questions to seem impressive. They ask them because they're desperate to understand how other people think. They'll sit with your response, consider it, ask follow-up questions that build on what you said, and genuinely integrate your perspective into their understanding of humanity. Trait 4. Their self-doubt contradicts their capabilities. This is where things get interesting, because it reveals a major contradiction that's actually the signature of an authentic INFJ. These are people who can read everyone around them with almost supernatural accuracy. They can see your potential, anticipate your challenges, understand your psychology, and somehow always know what you need to hear. And yet they doubt themselves constantly, like intensely, almost paralyzing self-doubt. This contradiction exists because INFJs have what you might call the empathy paradox. They can see other people's strengths clearly because they're observing externally. They can be objective about other people's worth and capability. But when they turn that same analytical lens inward, they only see their failures, their mistakes, and the times they came up short. They remember every time they said something awkward, every situation they mishandled, every person they couldn't help as much as they wanted to. What's impossible to fake is how deeply this self-doubt actually affects them. Someone pretending to be an INFJ might say, "Oh, I'm so hard on myself," as a kind of humble brag. But then they bounce back. A real INFJ genuinely struggles with the question of whether they're good enough. They'll help you become the best version of yourself, while quietly wondering if they have anything of value to offer. They'll change someone's life trajectory, and then immediately think about the one thing they did wrong in the conversation. This self-doubt isn't some act they're putting on for sympathy. It's a genuine neurological reality. Their brain is literally designed to notice everything they did imperfectly, to remember every mistake, and to question whether they're capable of handling what's being asked of them. You can't manufacture that kind of pervasive self-doubt. It has to be genuinely embedded in your personality structure. The fake will reveal themselves by either not having this level of self-criticism, or by using their supposed insecurity as a way to fish for compliments. A real INFJ's self-doubt is private, persistent, and completely at odds with their actual capabilities. Trait 5. When they close the door, it locks permanently. INFJs have earned a bit of a reputation in personality circles for having something called a door slam. This is where they completely and entirely remove a person from their life, often with very little explanation and no opportunity for that person to defend themselves or make amends. People who don't understand INFJs think this is cruel or dramatic. People who understand INFJs know it's actually an act of self-preservation. Here's what happens. An INFJ has been absorbing emotional energy from a person for potentially years. They've been trying to help, support, understand, and forgive repeatedly. They've extended more grace and patience than they probably should have. And then at some point, a threshold gets crossed. The INFJ realizes that continuing the relationship is actively damaging their mental health, their energy levels, and their ability to be present for other people who depend on them. At that moment, they make a decision. Not in anger, not in vindictiveness. With complete clarity and conviction, they decide they're done. What makes this absolutely impossible to fake is the finality of it, combined with the emotional investment that preceded it. If someone's just casually dismissing people from their life, that's not an INFJ door slam. That's someone who never really cared in the first place. A real door slam is devastating because it's the end of a relationship that the INFJ genuinely tried to make work. They're not doing it to punish the other person. They're doing it because they've calculated that the emotional cost of staying in the relationship exceeds the emotional cost of leaving it. Someone faking this would probably ghost people somewhat arbitrarily, or use it as a manipulation tactic. Do what I want, or I'll just disappear. A real INFJ has already tried everything else. They've communicated their boundaries. They've given multiple chances. They've extended patience well beyond reasonable limits. The door slam is basically the final decision after a long internal process, not an impulsive reaction. The fake reveals themselves by either slamming doors too frequently over minor issues or by threatening to slam doors as leverage. A real INFJ door slam is rare, final, and preceded by extensive emotional labor that nobody else witnessed. When it happens, there's no negotiation, no drama, no explanation. The person is simply no longer part of their world. Trait 6. They see down roads others haven't started walking. INFJs have this weird ability to predict how situations are going to unfold with freaky accuracy. You'll be explaining your relationship situation, and before you even finish the story, they're already gently suggesting that certain patterns are probably going to lead to certain outcomes. And then months later, when those exact outcomes happen, you'll realize they saw it coming all along. This isn't magic or psychic ability. It's pattern recognition, operating at a level most people aren't even aware exists. INFJs have spent years, often decades, studying human psychology and observing relationship dynamics. They've noticed the patterns that lead to certain outcomes. They understand the psychological laws that govern human behavior. So when they see someone exhibiting pattern A, They know that pattern B is likely to follow, which usually results in outcome C. What makes this impossible to replicate is that these predictions actually come true, consistently. Someone faking this ability would make vague statements that could apply to almost anything. Yeah, that relationship probably won't work out, is a guess that's right often enough just by probability. But a real INFJ is specific. They understand the exact mechanisms by which things will probably go wrong. They could tell you not just that it'll fail, but how it'll fail, and when you'll probably realize it's failing. The reason they're so accurate is because they're not actually predicting the future. They're reading the present situation and understanding the implications. They're seeing what's already there in the dynamic between people. They're noticing the incompatibility, the unresolved issues, the patterns of behavior that suggest future problems. So they're not really fortune-telling. They're just seeing further down the current trajectory than most people can see. This extends beyond relationships to career paths, life decisions, and even societal trends. An INFJ might warn you about taking a particular job, not because the job itself is bad, but because they can see how your personality will interact with that work environment over time. They're running mental simulations based on their understanding of human psychology and organizational dynamics. The fake will reveal themselves by making predictions that are either too vague to be meaningful or too specific to be consistently accurate. They might get lucky occasionally, but they won't have the underlying understanding of human psychology that allows real INFJs to see patterns that others miss. A real INFJ's predictions aren't guesses. They're logical extensions of observable psychological patterns. Trait 7. Their sensitivity is a superpower they cannot turn off. INFJs feel things in a way that most people literally cannot relate to. When someone they care about is suffering, they don't just sympathize, they kind of experience it. Not in a metaphorical sense. They actually feel a physical response to other people's emotional pain. Their heart might race. Their stomach might knot up. They might feel tears coming, even though it's not their pain. This is called emotional empathy, and it operates at a level in INFJs that's actually measurable and neurologically distinct from how most people experience empathy. They're not choosing to feel this way. Their nervous system is literally responding to the emotional states of people around them. But here's the thing that makes it impossible to fake. You can't turn this on and off. Someone could try to seem empathetic and caring by asking about your feelings and seeming concerned, but they'd have to recharge afterward. They'd have to go do something fun and distracting to shake off the heaviness. A real INFJ carries the heaviness with them. They'll be at a party, smiling and engaging, but part of their mental energy is still holding space for the person who shared their struggles with them earlier. This sensitivity also extends to criticism in a way that most people don't experience. An INFJ doesn't just hear your criticism of their actions. They hear an implicit criticism of their entire self. If you point out that they said something insensitive, they're not just thinking, okay, I need to be more careful with my words. They're thinking, what kind of person am I that I hurt someone? What's wrong with me? Maybe I shouldn't be in relationships at all. Someone faking this level of sensitivity would struggle to maintain it because it's exhausting. After a while, they'd want to disconnect and be more callous. A real INFJ can't really disconnect. This is just how they're wired. Trait 8. They're building towards something others cannot see yet. Here's the thing about INFJs that really separates them from everyone else. They're not living in the present moment in the way that most people are. There's always this part of their consciousness that's looking forward, seeing potential, imagining what could be better, and planning how to move toward that vision. This isn't daydreaming or wishful thinking. This is active, strategic vision building. An INFJ might be working a job that seems unrelated to their ultimate purpose, but that's because they're seeing the connections that nobody else sees yet. They're thinking about how this experience is going to position them for something bigger. What's impossible to fake is the way this vision actually shapes their life decisions. Someone could talk about wanting to change the world, but then completely ignore that stated vision when making career choices or relationship decisions. A real INFJ is actually making decisions based on their vision. They're willing to take lower-paying jobs if the work aligns with their purpose. They're willing to stay in difficult situations if they can see how the struggle is going to transform them or help someone else transform. INFJs are looking at the world and seeing the gaps, the places where things aren't working, where people are suffering unnecessarily, where there's potential for positive change. And instead of just complaining about it or wishing it were different, they're actually working toward making it different. That alignment between their vision and their action is something you can't manufacture. It has to come from a genuine internal compass that points toward meaning. These 8 traits represent neurological wiring, not chosen behaviors. You can't maintain authentic empathy without genuinely feeling it. You can't keep predicting outcomes accurately if you're just guessing. The reason INFJs are so rare and irreplaceable is because their combination of perception, purpose, and profound care for others' growth operates at a level that simply cannot be imitated. If you recognize these traits in yourself or someone you know, you've identified something genuinely extraordinary. If you want to continue the journey to understanding yourself or an INFJ in your life, click either of the following videos where we continue to unlock the secrets of the INFJ personality type.